Welcome to part 106 of Flipping Tables. And this is November 30th, 2025 by man's calendar. Can y'all believe we're getting ready to roll over? Well, actually, by the Maseroth we already have. Because at sunset tonight it actually became the 1st of December. Can you believe that? It's December again. Back about 4 years ago. Well, 5 years ago, actually. No. God sent me to do a thing. I had to stay a week on a mountain and pray, where a staff was brought to me by an angel. I didn't know what I was doing. I was told just to go back to where I'd received the first staff from the rock. And so I went back there, and I was supposed to stay there a week. So we went there, me and Bo and Kenny, and we stayed the week on that mountain there, that area where the mountain was. And we couldn't even get a cabin or nothing on the mountain because everything was booked up. So we had to settle for a motel room off the mountain, actually, to begin with. And God provides. I was supposed to actually pray all night on the mountain, a specific night out of that week. And we went. And when we were on the way, the Lord said there was going to be music on the mountain. And I didn't know what that meant, but I told Kenny and Bo, I said, God said there's going to be music on the mountain. And then after I complete the night that I'm supposed to pray on the mountain, there's supposed to be an angel that's supposed to bring me a staff on the mountain. And I was going through a lot of transition at that time, because that was in 2020. And I was going through a lot of weird stuff, and I was hearing Ezekiel's wheel and a wheel turning, and it was bugging me, and it was loud, and I couldn't tune it out. I couldn't get it, and I was just on spiritual overload. Talk about a Damascus Road experience. I thought that I couldn't hear anything but that noise for a long time. I didn't know what it was. And I was praying for God to bring me peace, because I hadn't read the whole Word of God yet. I was just getting started reading it for myself. And God took on this journey, because I had heard a shofar, me and Kenny, while we were praying one day, and it shook our whole house. And it scared him. He said, does that mean we're dead now? And I told him, no, we got to see what God meant by that, because there's different reasons why they blow the shofar. So we got to find out what that one meant. And we got to establish that that's what it was. And he said, well, how do we do that? And I said, we ask God. And he said, okay. How? And I said, simple. We just asking God if that was the trumpet, the shofar, which we didn't call it that. We called it the ram's horn at that time. We just say to him, God, if that was your ram's horn that we just heard, give us another blast, please, so that, to confirm. No sooner than I got those words out of my mouth, boom, shook the whole house again. It happened again. And Kenny began to cry. And he said, yep, that's what it was. We're going to die, ain't we? And I said, we don't know yet. We have to see, like I said, what God has the intent of this and why he did it. What he's saying to us with this one. Because each sound has a different meaning. It's a coronation to a wedding. Could be an invitation to a wedding. Could be a call to war. We don't know. So it sent us on a path of studying even harder to find out answers. And God told me to go to the mountain and do that 7 days. So I went. And when we got there, I told them on the way about the music and the staff and everything. When we got there, we went and we was walking around and we was showing Kenny around. He had never been there before. And as we was coming back, you could hear the waterfalls in the distance. But I heard music. And I was excited because God had told me that hours before we had ever got there. And I was so excited. Couldn't wait to find out where it was coming from. So I was like, do y'all hear that? It's the music. And I went toward it quickly. And when I turned and looked back to see where they were were barely dragging, and they were trying to convince me I was hearing things, that there was no music. They couldn't hear it. But I was still hearing that Ezekiel's willing and will noise. And even over top of that, I heard the waterfalls and I heard the music. And I was praising God because I still was hearing it. And it was calming my spirit. You know, like David was able, when he played on his harp, to calm God's spirit. Right? So, anyways, that's what I thought of when these things were happening. And I went in a hurry toward that sound. And I got closer to it. I started slowing down to wait on them. And they were still a good little distance behind me. So I'd come to complete stop and I just stood there and was listening. But still at the same time, I wanted to go, go, go. I was excited. I wanted to go find this music. And when I turned and looked at him, I was getting ready to ask, do you hear it now? And Bo was trying to convince me, it's the waterfall. It's the waterfall. All the way down through there. And I was like, no, I hear that. But I hear the music. So I walked back to Bo finally and I said, you don't hear that. And he said, it's the waterfall. And I whispered in his ear, I said, do you hear the flute? And I didn't say anything to Kenny, what it was or what sound. And he said, no, there's no music. There's no music. But I knew I wasn't wrong, and I knew they would come wherever I went. So I said, fine, I'll go to it. And when they get up to right where it's at, they'll hear it. And they'll acknowledge it. So I went on again, taking off toward it. And when I got a little closer, I was almost to it. It was even louder. And I turned and looked at him and was fixing to ask again, do you hear it now? And Bo looked at Kenny and he said, do you hear that? Before I could even say anything. And Kenny said, the waterfall? And Bo said, no, listen. And Kenny started listening. He said, is that a flute? And Bo looked at me. And tears welled up in his eyes. Because they knew. He knew. And he said, yeah, it's a flute. That's what she was hearing this whole time. And we couldn't hear it, but she could. So we get on up there, and there's a little man sitting on a bench with a flute that he had carved himself. Quite amazing, I thought. And it sounded so pretty. And he was playing Beautiful Star of Bethlehem. That's why I was in a hurry. I recognized the tune. And so I went toward it. He was sitting there playing that. And we sit there and listen for a while as he played different flutes. He had 7 of them, actually, which I thought was kind of funny. And he was playing them all, different ones, different songs, and each one had a different sound. And he played different songs. And they were beautiful. And he was telling us little stories in between to give yourself a little time to recuperate between songs. But it was beautiful. And we sit there listening to that music. It was something God had showed us. And it was there. Something God had told me, rather. And it was there. I didn't make it up. He was real. He was there. They saw him. They heard him. And it's quite amazing. But anyways, we listened to him. He was there for the 7 days that we were there. We listened to him almost every day. And it was helping bring peace to me to go do that every day. And to go pray on the mountain like I was supposed to in various places around the mountain. And God had showed me a lot of stuff still. And I was still super charged and super excited because all these things that God had shown me was going to happen there, it was happening there. And so I knew that the staff was definitely coming. So I was super excited about that. And so we got down to the wire when it was the day before that I was supposed to pray on the mountain. And I was starting to get worried about how or where we was going to stay. Where we could park or something just to be on the mountain for the night so that I could pray all night on the mountain like I was supposed to. And as we was leaving the mountain that evening to go back to the motel, we was going to go get us something to eat and go back to the motel. Bo takes off different direction than what we were supposed to be going. And I was like, what are you doing? He was like, I don't know. I just have to go this way. And I said, why are you going that way though? Because the GPS didn't say go that way. Why are you going that way? And he said, no, I have to go this way. I have to go to a building up here. And I was like, what are you talking about? There's no building up there. And he said, yes, there is. There's a building up here I have to go to. And I was like, okay. You'll see when you get up here. There's nothing up here but the cabins. This is the cabin road. And he said, no, I have to go up here. I just know I'm supposed to go up here. And I said, okay. So he went up there. And then he whips into this parking lot. Once we get up there, up the cabin road. And I was like, what are you doing? And he was like, it's the office. And I said, yeah, for the cabins. It's not just a building, it's the cabin office. And he said, yeah, but this is the building where I was supposed to come to. I said, why? He said, I'll be right back. So he runs inside and he asks them, do they have anything available for our last couple nights there? And the woman said, that's really weird that you come in here right then, because we just had somebody that had a family emergency and they had to leave at the last minute. So we just got that opening. It'll be an hour before that the cabin's ready, but it'll be ready in an hour. And he said, we'll take it. And she said, we only have it available for the next 2 nights. He said, that's all the time we have left here anyway. So we'll take it. She said, okay, that'll be the next 2 nights, and then the next morning until checkout time. And he said, okay, that's it. That'll take care of us. And he said, we got to go back and get our stuff anyway. And that'll give y'all time to get it finished. And by the time we get back from getting all of our stuff and everything, and grab us a quick something to eat and get back here, he said, it'll be ready. And she said, all right, that'll work. He comes back out. He said, problem solved. I said, what are you talking about? He said, we just got us a cabin for the next 2 nights. I said, how in the world? They were booked up. And he told me what happened. And that he just kept hearing this voice telling him to go there. And he couldn't ignore it. And we went, and we got the room. We got the cabin for 2 nights. So I got to spend the night praying on the mountain like I was supposed to. And I waited all day the next day on the angel. Kept waiting, waiting. We were almost at the main top of the mountain where our cabin was. I was so tired because I'd been up all night praying. They went to sleep. They went to sleep and left me. They were just like, whatever. But I couldn't. I kept thinking of what Jesus said to the disciples. Could you not even tarry with me even 1 hour? So I couldn't go to sleep. Every time I would get tired, I would hear him say that. And I'd get up and start walking around pacing and praying. I didn't even know why I was there, except for to get that staff. I didn't even know why. I didn't know anything yet. I just wanted to be obedient to the Lord. So I went. And I was so tired I needed a nap for a little while. And I made Bo promise to wake me up if the angel come with the staff, because I wanted to talk to him. And he said, okay. So I went to sleep for about an hour and a half. And I woke up and I said, did they come? Did they bring it? And he said, no, nobody's been here. So maybe you left it on the porch. Maybe we wasn't supposed to see him. So I opened the door and I stepped out on the porch and I looked all around the little yard thing and everything. And I was like, no, it's not out here. And Bo said, if we don't go, we're going to miss a little flute player. So we went down there to try to catch him. And he was leaving. He was leaving. And I was still so tired. And I didn't get to hear him play that day. Which was kind of sad because it was my birthday. And I didn't get to hear him play. But when we get down there, he's coming out, and Bo and Kenny ran on ahead to try to catch him if he was there, so he would know we was coming. And when we got there, Bo comes back to me and he says, I know you're tired, but you better hurry. He's leaving. And so I said, okay, I'm coming. So I started walking past her. My heart was broke though, because I waited all day for that angel. That hadn't come. They didn't come. But I knew that God was sending that staff. I knew it. But I still didn't get discouraged completely. I still knew it was coming somehow. God was going to get me that staff before the night was out. I knew. So finally I get down there and there's a little flute player coming out and he walks over to me. And he said, I almost gave up on you coming. I've been waiting for you. I said, waiting for me? He said, yes. I said, why? He said, because I wanted to thank you. I said, for what? He said, for everything that you all did for me while I was here. I said, we didn't really do nothing. Just prayed and talked to you a little bit. And we gave him a little money every day in his bag as he played the flute. We prayed for God to increase it, and God did. He said, you did more than you know for me today. And he said, so I have something for you. And I said, what's that? And he reached over in the corner and he pulled out the staff. And I just lunged and grabbed it. It didn't even dawn on me. It's a staff, I said. And I look around at Bo and Kenny because I was super excited. And their chins was on the ground. And they was just staring at each other in shock and disbelief. And then they looked back at the little man. And he gave us a hug. And he left. And I told him thanks for the music. It calmed that, and I wasn't hearing Ezekiel's will and a will like I had been. It calmed it down. The weird jitteries or whatever that was going on inside me finally calmed down. I felt like everything was moving at supersonic pace, and it was going too fast, and I couldn't seem to get it to slow down. Something had happened to the world in 2020 and nobody noticed it. And I could feel it. And I couldn't explain it to anybody. But I could feel it. I could feel the change and the shift in the world. And then everything started changing. And everybody started changing. And Bo says to me, though, after the little man walked away, I said, can you believe it? I told y'all that God would send the staff. He said, you said an angel was supposed to bring you that staff. I said, yeah. And that's when it hit me. He was with us the whole time. We had talked to him for 7 days and we didn't even know that we were sitting there with the angel the whole time. They're real, y'all. Y'all be freaking out and thinking, and you don't even know, and they walking around you all the time. All the time. They're always around you. And sometimes you offend them. And they love you. They love you a lot. I'm out of time on this video, but there's more to this testimonial, and we'll get one into Luke as soon as I can. But I gotta finish out this testimonial first, because I have to tell this. I don't know why. So I'll see you in the next part.